Hello, everybody. It's George from Ireland. So, welcome back to my channel. Well, goodness, yeah, we're into the first round of the Conservative and Unionist Party leadership contest. Now, Suella Braverman failed to qualify. He just couldn't get enough people to nominate her. And Priti Patel is out. It's surprising she didn't throw her hat into the ring in the previous two occasions because she was a really big beast, having been Home Secretary for several years, just the right age. Let's face it, being a visible ethnic minority and a woman would work in her favor. I remember hearing way back in, was it 2022 and 2021, that she'd been quietly fundraising. So she's gone, abominated by civil servants. I mean, a very senior civil servant, I shan't say whom, said, well, yes, of course, it's a left wing prejudice in the civil service. Admitted in my source as a former member of the Conservative Party, and saying, if you're firm with people, if you don't get them, will let them get away with any nonsense. They call that bullying. And that was held against her and indeed Dominic Raab. So, yeah, she only got 14 votes, or about 12% of the Conservative Parliamentary Party cast their votes in her favour. I have a feeling some people didn't cast any votes. Then there's Mel Stride with only 16 votes. So, I mean, he's going to be eliminated quite clearly. I mean, I'm surprised he's got this far anyway. Talk about Pale Male Stale, just not very well known, represents a fairly rural Southern English constituency. Yeah, has never achieved much, clubbable, but just unremarkable, not the sort of image the Conservative Party needs, not even a forceful speaker or anything. Now, and then comes Tom Tugendhat, and he represents the liberal wing of the party, but he's got only 17 votes. 14.4% of the Conservative MPs voted for him. So I mean, I don't think he's going to win in the end, but he'll be in the final three, maybe even the final two. He was a Remainer, and he was the only one who stood for the leadership previously to say, yeah, Boris Johnson is a liar. And nobody else would do that because there are some dyed in the wool Johnsonites out there. And if you say a bad word about Johnson, they will never forgive you. But he's willing to take that risk. But so obviously he's through to the next round. But more could be eliminated. Priti Patel was the only one who's eliminated. Mel Stride might choose to drop out at this point. So James Cleverly, and some people see him as a possible leader. So there he's about 50 years of age, former army officer. He's a mixed race gentleman, former chairman, and then what was he? Foreign secretary most recently. And he's grown a beard in the last couple of years. Bit of a midlife crisis going on there when he grows a beard. His wife survived cancer, which she's let us know. I'm not quite sure now why. I might explain some absences from public life. He got almost 18% of the votes, so 21 MPs cast their ballots for him. Seen as a bit of a continuity candidate, there's no policy of Rishi Sunak or indeed Boris Johnson that he wouldn't defend. So I don't think he'd ever be prime minister. It is hard to dislike. James, not so cleverly, he's known as. I think he's over promoted, only a semi-effective speaker. Okay, then come on to Kemi Badenoch. Mrs. Badenoch is the one to beat. The surprising thing is that she didn't come first, which I thought she would at this stage. I don't know anybody who loathes her. Seen as more on the right of the party, so an excellent public speaker and can hold forth without notes. Has talked about principles and values and so on, and tried to map a way back to getting back into office. But even she acknowledges it has to rely on Labour screwing up. And well, depend upon it, and they have already messed up quite badly already. But I think the Conservative Party is a very long way from getting back in. So 22 MPs put their confidence in her, gave her their confidence rather, 18.6% of the total. So she's very likely to be in the final two, and I think likely to be the leader. Now, what surprised me is that Robert Jenrick came first with 28 votes, or almost 24% of the parliamentary party put their faith in him. So I thought he would have come third. I mean, there's not very much in it. 28 votes for him versus 22 for Kemi Badenoch versus 21 for James Cleverly. I mean, the difference between the highest ranked candidate and the lowest ranked is not huge. 28 votes for Jenrick and 14 votes for Priti Patel. Now, again, that's partly because there's just so few Conservative MPs to be voting. So yeah, Robert Jenrick has got quite a good chance of getting in the final two there. Seen as a bit more moderate than Kemi Badenoch. He's 42. He's a barrister. Lost a lot of weight in the past couple of years. I think banal, uninspiring. I don't think he would be a fantastic leader. I would prefer Kemi Badenoch. Now, yes, put my cards on the table, partly because she's my cast of mind as well, and someone who was fervent in favor of the Rwanda plan. I mean, I was in favor of it, I just thought it was impracticable. So just had to find an alternative. a lot of money was wasted on something. Our politics is the art of the possible, as Lord Richard Austin Butler said. So Rab Butler would point out, yeah, this will be good, but as it's impossible, we got to move on and find something that is possible. Should have recognized the unviability of the Rwanda plan and indeed found something that was workable. So there's no good at being good theoretically. It's all about workability. What matters is what works, as Tony Blair used to say. Okay, so there's another leadership ballot coming up, and it will eliminate at least one candidate, possibly two. It depends whether they meet the threshold. So the leadership race officially began on the 24th of July. They're going to narrow it down before the party conference, which will be, the end of September, early October. What else about this one? And so that they'll have a chance to address the conference. Some people think that's a mistake, that they shouldn't be doing that, and so it says a lot about the Conservative Party, though they all represent rural constituencies, really. So now Mrs. Badenoch sits for North West Essex, previously stood for another seat, Saffron Walden in Essex. And was that Rab Butler's seat as well? Braintree in Essex, that's where James Cleverly represents. Remember, the Conservative Party is stronger in Eastern England. Newark, that's in Lincolnshire. Robert Jenrick represents that constituency. He was Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government, or he was Minister of State for Immigration, not a very effective one. Priti Patel, she represented Witham, which is also in Essex, just south of Colchester. So 3 Essex MPs out of the 6. Mel Stride represents Central Devon. I used to get him mixed up with Kit Malthouse, who represents somewhere in rural Hampshire, and Tom Tugendhat representing Tunbridge. Used to be Tunbridge and Malling. Do I pronounce it correctly? So he was Minister for State for Security, and he'd been chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. So point out that he'd actually not held a cabinet post, whereas Mel Stride had been Work and Pension Secretary, and again, a very ineffective one. More people economically inactive than ever before. Whereas Robert Jenrick, well, I said what he was. The only one who's held great offices of state who's still in the race is James Cleverly. So Home Secretary, previously Foreign Secretary, Education Secretary, and so on. Whereas Kemi Badenoch was Business Secretary, Minister of Women Equalities, and International Trade Secretary. But she gave a speech a few years ago saying she wanted to boost immigration, and that's come back to haunt her. We'll see how she'll get out of that. Okay, there's not great name recognition, but amongst the ordinary members of the party, Kemi Badenoch is the party's darling. So the grassroots, like James Cleverly, only one opinion poll showed him winning that one by quite some way, 26% as opposed to 14%. And one poll showed Robert Jenrick winning. That was 24% of the vote, just ahead of Kemi Badenoch and miles ahead of James Cleverly. Not sure how much faith we can put in these things. The sample is very small. Some people left the party, some people have died. The party membership is very, very old. But remember, the parliamentary party will slim it down to 2 candidates, and the 2 candidates will go to the mass membership. There'll be an online ballot. The idea is they can't let the ordinary members choose an earlier possible stage, because the ordinary members might pick someone who they adore, but the MPs can't work with. And that's sort of what was Labour's problem with Jeremy Corbyn. So I still think that Kim Badenoch will win. But now I'm thinking that in the final round against is going to be Robert Jenrick, not James Cleverly. Thanks for watching my channel. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon, donate on PayPal. Goodbye.